Welcome to the Healthy Show, where we journey through health, wellness, self-mastery, and entrepreneurship. Discover powerful insights from industry experts as they share their path to success and offer practical tips to elevate your life. Join us for thought-provoking discussions that inspire you to reach new heights. So Ruby, thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to have you here and cover a lot of different ground related to all sorts of healing modalities, particularly sound healing, and also your career of going more into mantras. But if I think about all of that, that's not something you learn at school or you really sort of get exposed at school to do as a career. How did you actually start looking into these healing modalities?
It was actually because I was in a crisis in my own life.
Yeah.
I reached a point, I was working as a primary school teacher, and I found myself in a situation that was heartbreaking and with a man, and I just needed to sort of like stop life and be like, reassess and like, how did I get here? And why is this still happening, this pattern with men? And so I really took myself on a healing journey and received a lot of healing over a period of time. And then I was so inspired by all the modalities that I'd learned, like that I'd received,
Yes,
that I then wanted to learn them and offer them as healings for others.
Yeah, right. So when you talk about a pattern, like is that something, do you mind sharing a little bit more of what is an example of a pattern?
So in my childhood, I was raised by an alcoholic father and my mother. And so there was a pattern with the masculine that developed where it was unsafe at times because there was no sort of consistency in behavior with an alcoholic father.
Just because I have no background in that at all. So I'm just making up in my story. At one stage, people are so drunk, like the father is so drunk that they don't know what they're doing, or they're really getting aggressive or something.
Yeah, well, thankfully he wasn't so aggressive, but he would drink to the point where he wasn't even able to control his body.
Yeah.
And unfortunately would drive us home drunk and things like that. So there was a lot of unsafe
That would be
experiences.
Scary. Yeah.
And, you know, a man who drinks a lot can sometimes be womanizing. And so there wasn't a lot of like a sense of honoring of my mother. Their relationship wasn't like that kind of strong bond that you would hope to experience as a child. So then the pattern I developed was I got involved with men who sometimes they were either, there was a pattern of addiction because it reflected my father's addiction. And then there was also a pattern of, you know, that infidelity, that not honoring of the woman. So it's been a really big journey for me to work through uncovering those wounds from the childhood and clearing the subconscious mind.
Just because I have 5 girls at home, when you talk about sort of like the pattern that you observe in your dad and probably as family as a whole as well, why do you think that is that then we actually look or we attract or we somehow find ourselves in the same situation again? Like, what is it in us that does that?
It's the unconscious mind. So as a child, in the first 7 years of our lives, we are picking up all the beliefs of the parents around us, the society. So this is like a sponge time as a child. It's also, we're in the theta brainwave as a child. So that's the subconscious mind, the theta brainwave. So we're like observing everything around us. Oh, that's how a man treats a woman. Oh, that's how my mother tolerates that. So I'll tolerate that with men. I'll allow that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very deep, very unconscious. And it's only as we start to do the inner work that we realize what's really playing out sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So in a sense, it creates a blueprint of what we believe it's meant to be, huh?
Yes.
So when you find like a potential partner or someone like you, it's like, oh yeah, that's what it's meant to be. So therefore I go for that.
Yes. And unfortunately, I would more likely choose a partner that is similar to my father.
Yeah.
In those early years.
Yeah.
So it would be someone who drinks.
Yeah.
I was drinking myself when I was young.
Okay.
You know, so it's like similar patterns.
Fascinating. So that's ensuring if you as a parent can create a role model that you believe is really healthy for them, it's really devastating if you don't, because
Absolutely.
right?
And if you're experiencing trauma as a child
Yeah.
and an unsafe environment, that trauma gets stuck in your body and your mind. And later on, as you grow into your adult years, it resurfaces. And a lot of people are experiencing this now. Yeah, from the work that I do as a healer, I see it a lot. Like, the unresolved childhood trauma is coming up through the nervous system in signs of anxiety or depression, but they're not aware that that it's the link back to the childhood trauma that's coming up. So it's really hard for someone to understand what's going on when they're feeling anxious.
So what was it that created that awareness in you when you were a teacher? When you, like, how did that come out? Because that's really helpful, right? It would be good to be able to get quickly to that, to start healing us, right?
Yeah, of course. So I guess it was a crisis. You know, I hit a point with a man where, should I share this? It's very personal, or
that is absolutely up to you. You don't have to. But...
Well, look, it was a catalyst for my spiritual journey and my healing journey. So I'm happy to share. But
we talk about rape and suicide on this, because at the end of the day, you know, these are all real things, and I think things are more scary in my mind if they are not understood or not talked about, because then people make up the most horrific one, but not necessarily. Like, see, when you were saying about your childhood, I was like, yep, rape. You know, so it's good that you shared like a horrific childhood. Doesn't have to be only that. There are many different versions of that. And that might mean that people identify themselves with it. You know, so I believe it's good to name it. Like, you know, for the right reasons, reasons of creating awareness rather than having something shocking to say. That would be the wrong reason. So, but it's totally up to you, because it's very personal.
No. So I'm happy to share, because I feel like people can relate. You know, so I found myself in a situation with a man who already had another woman pregnant, and then he also got me pregnant and begged me to have an abortion because he didn't want everyone to find out who he really was and how he was behaving. And so at that time in my life, I just went ahead and had an abortion, and then cut contact, and we've never spoken again. But it was a big catalyst, because for me, that choice was a really hard choice, and it took many years to heal from that, because I love children and I've not had a child since. And I'm 43 now.
Still time.
There's still time if it's in my divine, you know, life purpose. But so it was just a real wake up call. It's like, why are men treating me like this? Like, this wasn't the first. That was kind of a minor experience compared to the previous relationship that I found myself in with what I would call a sociopath. So it's just been such a big journey with the masculine, learning to find my own power, and not allowing certain ways of being treated. Fair
enough. That's crazy. And so if you, so what did you do? So basically you just realized, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but basically, like, you were devastated. And was there an inner voice, which I believe can be super helpful, of like saying, I need help? Or is it more like, I want to change? Like, was there just a strong driver to, like, whatever it takes sort of thing?
It's like that metaphor of the phoenix rising from the ashes. It was like you hit the lowest of the low, but then like my soul and my spirit is so strong. Like, I have the most powerful soul that will not be beaten. And so I just started to rise back up, and I was like, well, I've got to change this. I've got to look at this. Like, I got myself here. Well, how did this happen? So then I went on a beautiful healing journey.
So where does that start? Like, the reason why I asked the specific question is because I think when I look for, like, I had always really interest in spirituality. In the early years when I just dabbled in it, I figured it out. I mean, it was people in the bar that I was working in that just had a bit of a spiritual outlook. I had a little bit of something mystical that was as good as it got for me, living in a really small working town. As I expanded, well, as I sort of like moved around, then it slowly I would get exposed to what I would probably call more pure, more fundamentals of spirituality that really helped me to create my own, foundation. So that's why I asked, like, how did you start? Did you find a particular book that just fell out of
Oh,
no?
yes, there are so many books that are like the golden nuggets along the spiritual path. Yes. I remember beginning to be aware of how important conversations with people are, and that inside every conversation, someone has something for you if you're really connected and present with the conversation. And I met a lady on the plane, and she revealed to me this amazing book, Many Lives, Many Masters, Brian Weiss, and it just opened up my whole consciousness. He was a psychiatrist who was doing regression therapy, and there was all these patients that were revealing that there are lives beyond just this that we have lived, and that just changed my whole world.
By the way, on that topic, I think that face recognition and AI will make it really apparent who we were in the last lifetime. They are certainly, I mean, I'm sure you've read these stories that, the same birthmarks at the same point, and, certain people have memories that only make sense if you were that person before, and so on. I mean, there's a whole field. There's so many books written by scholars actually saying, like, the only explanation really is that this is that person. Well, there might be a couple of explanations, but yeah, it's fascinating to see, I think, where technology can actually help us to really have that consciousness from a rational mind point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to stay very rational in the body, present. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's important.
So that was a stepping stone for you.
Yes. Yes. One of many.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a bit like that, isn't it? Once you started to read something and you really inspired, you talk to another person and said, you know what, actually, like, how about you move into, have you read this book? And it's really, it's just like a stepping stone after stepping stone to create like a foundation of, like, I think I know what I believe the meaning of life, or how this life works. And
yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And then what happened?
Well, I started to do chakra dancing. I started to get Reiki healing sessions. I started to get hypnotherapy. I was doing a lot of yoga. It was just, things were happening like that we in the yoga world call awakenings. My whole body was getting hot at times. And so my body was awakening during this time, and I was actually feeling the sensations. I didn't understand what was happening, but after researching, it's like we call it the Kundalini, and it's believed to be at the very base of the spine in the Muladhara chakra. And when the Kundalini starts to awaken, she rises up the back of the spine, and that was what was happening. I was starting to feel these sensations moving up the back of my spine, and it was really like profound. Things were shifting in me. Yeah.
How old were you
I was 32.
Okay. And was that sort of like the beginning of it all, or
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was doing a lot of personal development as well. I was studying with Tony Robbins. I was studying with Landmark. I was really, really in that immersion of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all brilliant tools at the right time, I believe. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we just think about it in general terms, if someone knows there's something wrong and they want to change, what's a good question to ask? Like, because I've met people who said, like, oh, I would love to talk about this a little bit more, but I don't know to whom. And so they just keep it in themselves for years sometimes, thinking this is really bad or they're really unusual, and there's no one will understand them and they actually would judge them, What would be a good trick to name it, to come out, if you like, with that and talk to someone about it, to get on the way?
Oh, yeah. Well, I would start with sitting with self.
Okay.
A lot of the time we're pushing things away.
Yes.
We're just trying to suppress.
Yes.
We don't want to be in the uncomfortable. But the process needs to be felt. So it's just simply sitting with what you are feeling as it's arising.
Yeah.
And taking the time to actually try and track it in the body. So noticing what the emotion is and trying to drop below it. Yeah, because it's a part of you trying to get your attention. So yeah, really becoming present with self and taking time for self.
Yeah.
It's a self-love practice.
I remember actually, so I do breath sessions, sort of like 90 to 120-minute breath sessions once a month. And what I find, certainly that space that you describe applies also for that practice for me. And the way that it feels is really that a lot of, what if, I wonder what other people think, or maybe more, why is that the right thing to do? Is this really important, really, that I talk about the emotion underneath it, or that I act the way that it feels the right way to act? But after that session, it's to me really clear. It's like, no, this is not silly. This feels like this comes really from the heart. This is how I want to act. So I relate to that, because to me it's like almost like the rational layer that sort of like polices a little bit what one does, and I think it has a really good role to play as well in social settings and so on. But I think it can be also prohibitive, because it then also, that layer also prohibits us to speak our emotions that might really need to be spoken.
100%. Absolutely.
Mm.
Because if we don't speak our truth, we're actually blocking our whole energy system. So yeah, to actually allow ourselves to feel it and then give voice to it. It's really profound for the body.
Yeah. From a physical point of view, if you don't, you can measure that the pH changes. And if you have an acidic body for too long, things like cancer definitely are created. I don't know how many people I've seen and just talked to them about of either creating cancer, and they had the reflection of like, because I didn't speak up, or I just sort of like swallowed it, or didn't digest something that happened to me, all of that.
Yep.
And then, either the cancer consumed them and they died, or they got through it. But, regardless, I think all of them would say is like, I should have done this way earlier. Because like once you've done it, it feels actually really, I don't know if I want to say insignificant, but often it feels like, it was easier than I thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually build it up in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we actually speak it or something, we're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I'm glad I did that. I got it off my chest. Or yeah.
Mm. So you did all of that.
I did. Yeah, I was reading all those books that we were talking about. I was just, hyper focused, I guess, on that path.
Yes.
And then I decided to start studying myself and offering those to others. And I left my job as a teacher in the end, and I moved down to Byron Bay.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's when I first established myself in the area as a healer.
Yeah. What was the first modality that you offered?
I offered hypnotherapy.
Oh, yes.
Sound healing and energy healing.
Yeah, all of those.
Yeah.
Specific hypnotherapy?
As a trauma based hypnotherapy.
Right.
Yeah, for PTSD.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you get the word out there? Again, like the reason why I'm asking that is more like, how can people find these types of works, and how can they trust, right? Because, I believe it's quite common that the reason why we become healers is that we had a trauma, but it's also not uncommon that this trauma is still around, right? So like, how would you go about diverting slightly here to actually find someone that you trust? Like what would be your way to, how did you connect with people and gave them the trust that you will be able to help them?
So I was actually putting myself in front of people, sort of like they're walking past and I'll say, hi, my name's Ruby. And I was wondering if you would be interested in a free 15-minute session and build trust with them first, because people do not know me. So I was working at the gym.
Yes.
And so there was good traffic flowing outside the gym, because there was like a Kmart.
Yeah.
Target, I think it was. And so I just stood out at the front and was like very welcoming to people and offering what I did. And if they wanted to try it first and build a connection with my clients.
Yeah, wow. So that's quite brave.
Well, yeah, it's it stemmed from when I was in Greece. I had a job back when I was young in Greece.
Oh, okay.
Having to do that, but for a bar, so it was a completely different
life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, isn't it unusual? And then it actually helped you sort of like establish yourself.
That was how I got myself out there. It was Because how do people trust you if they don't know you?
Yeah.
And you're new in the industry.
Yeah.
At that point, I was very new. So
Yeah. The only way I believe in my human design sort of profile would confirm that is through people who already know me, recommend me.
yes.
But that's not everyone. There are some people that can build a rapport in an instant. My
Yeah.
oldest is like that. And
Yeah.
in fact, she can build quicker a rapport with people she doesn't know than she knows. But, that's only one type or out of 8, I think. So, yeah. So you just put yourself out there, and sometimes it works. Sometimes people say no thanks, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. And because I'd moved to a whole new area, I didn't have that word of mouth yet because people didn't know me. So
Yes.
that was my only real. And I tried all the conventional things like advertising in the newspaper, posters. I did a lot of that at the beginning. And now it's got to the point where, I've got such good reviews on Google that like 5-star, all 5 stars, and people just type me in and find me, and I don't even need to do anything now. So it's completely different 10 years later.
What do I type in to find you?
Sound healing, Byron Bay, or energy.
That's all. Yeah. Not even your name. Like we don't have to. They find you coming out in the top.
Yeah, because
well done.
I was smart, right? I chose my business name to have sound healing in it. So yeah, so all the savvy business tricks.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's okay. I think that's really important.
Well, how else do we help people if they can't find us?
Oh, very nice, very sophisticated. That's a really mature answer, right? Because also this thing in the healing industry I found is that people, they're not completely clear that success is a good thing.
Oh, success is incredibly positive. Abundance is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, pretty natural too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but somewhere I think quite a few people got wrong there. I certainly for a long time sort of rejected that, and
well, I would then suggest that that's probably a childhood pattern there, a belief that we picked up in our early years that's just blocking us. It's just something needs to be cleared.
Yeah. When I sit with my dad, I know where it's coming from because that those comments are small, like and they're quite persistent comments.
Yes.
Yeah, very true. Wonderful. So you did that.
Yeah.
And then did you hum into one particular into the sound healing, or do you still do different modalities depending on the situation?
Yeah, so predominantly I'm doing sound healing and energy healing. But yeah, I've got a beautiful website that offers 4 different services. And so clients can choose what they want, but they're the most popular ones. And getting really good results.
Yeah.
I'm
always interested in the how. So we're talking about, first of all, so most of your clients, they have, you think childhood trauma is probably a really dominant sort of cause for what they experience in their life or can't get in their life?
Sure, that is definitely one of the main things that people come to me for.
Right.
Whether they even realize it or not, but it gets revealed in a session.
Gotcha. So I found rational thinking is much easier, but it's not necessarily helpful in every way. So if I think rationally about someone who has a childhood trauma, you could just say, well, then you have to talk it through. But you don't do that, right? You come from an energy point of view.
This is somatic body healing.
So there's a memory in a person from their childhood, and it's also embodied in energetic ways in one way or another. There's a pattern. There's a memory somehow there. Somehow your body somehow knows it. It's not only the memory in your head, of course, right?
Of course, as Dr. Peter Levine says, trauma is held in the body and the mind, and for it to be healed, it has to be released.
From both?
Yes.
So you change the story in your mind. That's the only thing that I really sort of understand. I can convince myself on many things if I just persist.
Yeah.
Well, how about the body?
But the body, if the body's still holding the trauma, it will trigger the nervous system and uncomfortable feelings will arise. So until that's cleared out of the actual nervous system, you'll be reliving it and it will be unconscious. So you won't know why those uncomfortable feelings are surfacing. You'll just be anxious about stuff and you think it's because it's this going on in my life. I'm choosing all these paints for my new house. Why am I so anxious about just choosing paints? But it's deeper.
Do you have a concept of how you think the body absorbs it and can hold it?
Concept.
Well, so let's say
Well, the body has an energetic system in the yogic philosophy. So, for example, in the very base of the spine,
Yes.
a lot of the trauma to do with survival, safety gets held. So if as a child it was an unsafe environment with your parents, you're likely to have held a trauma and it's stuck in that energetic system right at the base of the spine. Because the spine is the nervous system.
So the observation that the brain does, and before 7, that's unconscious and or subconscious.
Yeah.
The spine gets triggered because it feels like an unsafe sort of like thing, and then it memorizes that to a degree.
Yes. And that's when the subconscious mind then goes, I remember this. Alert, alert. This could be dangerous. This could be like what happened when you were this old. And the manager part of the brain then starts being hyper vigilant and tracking for danger. So it can be really unsettling.
Yeah, it's a good thing if
It's
it
a
would still
good thing.
exist, right?
Yeah, it's important for us.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
keeps us safe. But sometimes that part of the brain needs to come out of the fight, flight, freeze mechanism that's got stuck in. We need to draw it down through the session, back down into I am safe. And the whole body responds when we speak into the ear gently as we just draw the energy back down. This is something that happened in the past and it's over. You're safe now. So there's a real art to it.
Yeah. But why do we still then go for partners that copy that trauma? Is it related to that or not?
Well, I believe that the subconscious mind is still operating, that's so it tracks and it draws those people in. So until we reprogram the mind and clear that trauma, we are still operating from that younger self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will just keep drawing it in. And I think in a way we're trying to draw it in to heal the root cause of it.
Yes.
So keep coming in until it's really being resolved.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're given the challenge again, there is an opportunity sort of to behave differently this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that's
very painful and causes deep suffering.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that people actually do it, right? I guess I have to admit that I see more people stuck than actually moving through life fluidly and evolving and all the rest of it. And I found that hard to accept because I feel I have a different path. I have I have enough dynamics in my life to shake off quite a bit of that. I'm sure I have my stuff that hasn't moved at all my life, but I think overall, when I identify something, or jump on it and somehow sort of wrestle with it to figure out a better way to be with it.
That's awesome. Well done.
Oh, thanks.
That's like, that's what we need to be like.
Yeah.
How else are we going to move through life?
Yes.
We just, that's thriving.
Right. And that's why I ask you, like, what's the first step for someone who doesn't know even I've been in that situation actually many years ago where I didn't know who to talk to about. And I felt really embarrassed to talk about that thing and didn't want to be judged. And, and so that's great that you say, just repeating what you said a bit earlier, is like sitting with it and really feeling it. That's a great starting point. I would probably add, for me, it was really being really brave to just tell someone just a little bit. And actually on that, a trick that I really like also in a relationship is, you might not know how you say something, but if you want to put yourself out there and just want to create that dynamic, you can use a phrase like, I don't know how I can say something the right way, but I would love to say that.
Yes.
So that preempts the receiving person of like, this will be probably not really polished and probably not really nice, but this person really has that need to say something or to work on something. I just want to put it on the record of like, there are always ways to get it out of you. If you have an inkling that something is not quite right, you will find a way to trigger some movement there, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's really important to talk about it with someone.
Yeah.
That's exactly a good step.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a method we can do that. It's like, I am feeling this, and just wanted to share with you. Is it the right time to share? Yeah.
So, and then when people come into a session, so basically they say, look, I feel not well, or maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, what would be things that people describe so that this modality will work here, or is it more intuitive than that?
Yeah, so we always have a pre-chat for the session. So I like to find out, where are you at in your life right now? What's really coming up, and what do you need?
Yeah.
And then that just allows people to start talking. And as people start talking, I'm kind of already like looking deeper, what's underneath what they're saying. So, and yeah, so sometimes they'll be just like, I'm just really anxious and I don't even know why.
Yeah.
And, you know, I shouldn't be. Everything's good in my life. And it's like, yeah, okay, right. And then we want to set an intention before we start the healing. So it's like, what in the positive would you like to feel? So I am at peace, or so something like that, so that when we go to do the work, anything that's blocking that will come up through the session to be healed.
Gotcha. Sound healing. How does that work?
Sound healing is the most beautiful, beautiful modality. Oh, it is so special to be working in this field. So the most important thing is to relax the client enough so they enter into the theta brainwave, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sounds that I use, they're very hypnotic. You know, they're like these beautiful singing bowls and Tibetan bowls, and so yeah. And I guide them initially just to help the brainwaves slow. So normally we're operating in the beta, very conscious, fast brainwave, and so as we slow the breath, the body starts to relax. The sounds melt the body down to a very relaxed place. And yeah, so I will use chimes, koshi bells, a medicine drum, harmonium, rattles, singing. I do a lot of voice, mantra.
Crystal balls.
Yeah. The crystal singing tones bowls are my favorite. They're very high quality. So the frequency, I always say to my clients, like, imagine a cup of water and then a speaker system blaring music into that cup of water. It will impact, you'll notice it, you'll see the frequency hitting the water. Well, that's exactly what's happening to you. As a water body, the sounds, they're just massaging into your whole system.
You were talking about it's related, by the way, what I'm going to say. I'm not jumping around, but I'm just now putting this together. So if someone has through their spine or someone in their base chakra or, you know, in that area, a trauma, that means its energy doesn't flow as it should normally do. It flows differently or not at all. It somehow releases like, hey, something is, stuck.
That's exactly right.
What does sound to that? What do you think sound does that?
Oh, sound is the most gentle way to work with it.
Yes.
It just gently identifies it because the crystal singing bowls have specific notes that target the actual chakras. So, for example, the Muladhara chakra, the base of the spine, is the note C.
Okay.
So then the bowl is a note C.
Oh,
so you play that C and it's targeting that area. Yeah.
And therefore releasing things, or at least, or activating.
Because it's what happens is it's stagnant there. It's the energy got stuck. So like, and if you've set an intention, a clear intention, you know, I am safe, that's going to work around healing what's not safe. Yeah.
I have heard that then that memory, that I guess that energetic memory that sits there, then if you're in that space of relaxation or feeling safe, that your mind might allow actually the imagery that in the first place caused that to bring back into your conscious, right?
It does happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yes, you might even have to feel the sensation of the actual trauma moving up out of the body and clearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
It is. It's profound.
Yeah. I don't know how widely spread that understanding is nowadays, that, you know, in a sense, what you say is like the whole body is a record of what the conscious mind has experienced at one stage.
Yeah.
Or at least absorbed. You know, you were talking about under 7, you're actually not conscious as such anyway. So somehow absorbed and brought into your body.
That's right. Because the subconscious mind remembers everything.
Yeah.
It does not forget.
It's it's scary. I've done some hypnosis training too, and it's crazy how people regress to a place and they can remember. I mean, even crazier, you can regress blind people to a particular spot and they can see something that, you know, things like that. It's fascinating. There are lots of books written on like that doesn't make sense, but it's absolutely documented, from a medical point of view even, and we just can't explain it. Yeah, I don't think for much longer this phrase will hold true, because I think, even though maybe not the world population as a whole necessarily moves in one as consciousness comes up, there are pockets, though, of understanding that, some pockets have been around for thousands of years. I'm sure you've studied this quite a bit more than me in terms of like sound healing has not just emerged in where we are in Byron Bay, like
It's an
20th
ancient
by
practice.
hippies. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Ancient, right? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I looked into it from a point of view of even liquefying materials to build structures. I don't know if you've looked into that, but there's like, I think it's particularly in South America, there's some temples. And there's no normal explanation how someone without a laser and really precision could have put these things together. But when you look at ancient technologies like sound healing, sound technologies, you can liquefy or soften hard materials to it, put them together.
Wow.
And that's why they're as tight as you could only, like a really skilled engineer could do today.
Yeah, I believe that they're all very evolved.
Yes.
And that we're just catching up.
Yes. So the technologies or the modalities that you use, they're often ancient, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they say Jesus was an energy healer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a yogi, apparently.
Yeah.
That
he
not
was.
Many people know that, but
no.
Yeah.
Wow. And the yogic practice, how old are those practices? They are older than even Jesus, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The lineage is very long.
Yeah.
Jesus wasn't even that far in the lineage. Yeah. There's amazing gurus. Yeah. That could leave their own bodies. These practices, that they spent hours training their mind.
Yes.
We call it Raja Yoga.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's absolutely magnificent. How do you think we found out about these things?
How do we find out about
found out about it? Like, how did we actually come to that point?
It's a really good question. I think it was different back then. I think there was a lot more connection to nature.
Yes.
To the cycles, to the moon, the stars. I think it was more intrinsic. It was more natural to be in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just we got a very busy life now. It's very distracting. So we get drawn to the outer world, not so much the inner world. So I think it was, I guess, and they had sages, didn't they? And they had these people that lived in caves, and they would have been in the community. I think they would have been really seen and respected.
Yeah. Particular smaller groups could organize themselves and accept that, certain people hold certain positions. I always marvel about the idea that, American Indians might have had, a shaman that actually basically says, all right, let me have a look today what the weather is like, but not from the point of view what the weather is like, but the weather, the wind, whatever that picture is that they meditate on could tell them sort of the future.
Yeah, what's coming.
Yeah. I guess there's so many different, you can use all sorts of different things to tell you the future, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the listening and the presence and noticing is such an important part, I think, of the spiritual journey.
So when you have someone, in a session, in a sense, you facilitate them to do that.
Yeah, exactly. To try to still the thoughts, try to come into their body, come into presence.
Because it sounds like what you're saying is like, in order to actually access that space where you can work, if you like, where you can shift things, where you can create some movement and change for their lives, you need to take a layer of protection, maybe a layer of busyness, of thoughts away to access the subconscious and all of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's okay if you can't get to that point too. Yeah. Often in a sound healing, people will report, my mind was so busy, I could focus and then I'd lose it. And it's absolutely normal.
Yeah.
Because we're all got this like busy mind to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. My breath work facilitator, he had a lot of trauma. He wrote a book about it, but he said the first 20 sessions were good and he could see movement, but he didn't resolve anything. And then eventually, I guess after you've done it that many times, maybe it felt like, actually, nothing bad will happen here. and I can trust my facilitator, which might take also a bit of time. I don't think that's a bad thing, taking a bit of time. And then you really can go deep and you really let go and like, I really want to work on this now.
Exactly. It's a journey. It's not a destination. It's just a process that you're showing up for. And there's no judgment on what does arise or what doesn't. And you just be patient with self. And and making sure you have a facilitator that you're comfortable with, so important.
So important, right? Like to me, living in this area too, I meet a lot of healers, and there's a lot of respect for that profession, but at the same time, there are not many that I feel sort of I gel with. And I think that has a lot to do, with my personality to start with, but I think I just have really rational mind, so I need someone to bridge for me, that for me by actually being also quite rational when needed. To feel safe and then move there. But other people might be different. But for talking about this breathwork teacher, he opened his mouth and I'm like, oh, that's a nice person. I wouldn't mind hanging around that person. And that was a great yes for me of saying, I can be vulnerable with that person because I really trust that they're knowing what they're doing there and they can hold me.
Absolutely. It is critical to healing.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're onto it.
Yeah. So you don't go to someone and say like, wow, they're so different and they're so scary. No, I'm sure they will do something really amazing to me, right? It's because then that layer will not, it just doesn't feel safe.
No, exactly. And that's like we were talking earlier, that step, once you identify that there's something there, you're feeling something, then you want to go and communicate it with a friend or a partner.
Yeah.
And then the next step is to start looking for that practitioner.
Yes.
And you can even say a prayer like, I want to work on this.
Yes.
And please send me, for my highest good, the right person for me.
Yeah.
And or just keep talking to people, get referrals.
Yes.
And then have a chat before you book in.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that person feels right. And many steps to do it, but it's definitely a good way to move forward. It's finding the right person.
So coming back to the sound healing that you're doing then.
That I love. Yeah.
That you love. So the receiving person feels safe. There's a term release, I guess, sort of feel emotion about it and so on. Does it change how the memory is perceived? Does it change the memory? Because you talked about it is held in two places. I'm wondering, does one inform the other? Like, do you have to work on both, or is one the master, and if you work on the spiritual, emotional side, the mind will be fine? Or how do you see that interaction between the two? Because what you described, it seems, is like when you talk about sound in particular, that's part of it, right? But it's probably, is there more to it, that dynamic?
I would say that there's many levels. Okay. So the sound would work on the somatic body, calming, releasing, clearing from the energy field. Yeah. And then it would be also quite beneficial to receive another modality, like an energy healing with maybe some hypnotherapy thrown into it to work on the mind, subconscious. So there's many ways to target trauma, and the more we kind of go from all angles, it's the better. Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer what you were?
Yeah. Would it change people's perception then of the rational perception of an event and put it more in perspective of that's the past and that's okay? There are some positive things about that. Like, how do you work on that? Or is that something that happens automatically as you clear sort of your energetics?
That's a really, really great question. That is a big part of the healing journey.
Okay.
So when someone is still in the nervous system triggered with the trauma, it's very contracting. It shuts you down. It closes your heart. You're just trying to keep safe. So it's very hard if the body's still holding that trauma to reach the next growth point of like, that trauma was a blessing in disguise because it taught me this, and now I'm at this point in my journey. But as you heal those things out of the actual physical body, then you can start to see the benefits of all of it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. What's the phenomenon that some people seem to be stuck? Like, meaning, and maybe it only appears stuck from the outside, but I've certainly met people over the years that they figured out that something is wrong. and they're quite aware, and maybe they even stepped into being really specific. I know exactly what happened to me and why, a really harmless but profound thing for a person I know is she was in the water and she had the feeling she was drowning. She was about 6, and her dad was laughing. And so that was the story that she had in her head. That's what happened. And as she progressed in her healing, in her journey there, it appeared that she realized that her dad was standing just ankle deep in the water, and she was right next to him. It doesn't negate the fact that he was laughing about her when she was scared, but it could have also been that he really didn't think that anything could have happened, but it was never clear that, it was only 10 centimeters of water and I was right next to it. I could have taken you out. But it really created a lot of problems with her body. And eventually she did, especially theta healing, I think was her thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, theta healing.
Yeah, that's it. And that cleared it to her. But she was carrying around that problem with her dad for a long, long time without sort of knowing. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I've seen it taking quite a while, but I've also met people that over the 10 years I've known them, they just can't shift it. What tip or what observation, like what commentary do you do with people like that? Not the right modality, not the right time. Like, what is it there? Because, you wish them, of course, that they move past and, just enjoy life, thrive.
Yeah, so you're saying if someone's really stuck,
Yeah,
and have they tried a few modalities?
yeah, absolutely.
And they're just not getting a result.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they must keep trying, because
That's it.
I honestly believe that it is a journey.
Yes.
And to keep at it, don't give up.
No.
It does, things resolve, and they can take years. I'm not going to like make out like it's a simple quick fix.
Yeah.
Healing takes work.
Yeah.
And you've got to be diligent, and you've got to set yourself a practice. But it really works. It pays off. And so, yeah, and you're showing up for yourself too, by, not giving up on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to me, people might think that something like this is really different to just learning about something else. But I believe if you just imagine, if you want to be good in painting, there will be a way to be good at painting, right? Like, it's just about how many books have you read? How many workshops have you been? How much have you tried? Like, have you talked to other people who have gone the same path? That's, I think, I found that really helpful to actually go to others and say, like, look, I have sort of the same issue as you. Or do you know someone who has like struggled with the same problem? What would be the way to go? And I always sort of have a bit of a smirk on my internally, probably, when people say, I've tried everything. There's nothing. It's like, really? It's just, to me, this is not logical, because there will be more. And
definitely.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily, I found it's also important to understand that the simple things are sometimes what helps.
Yeah.
Like if you have problems with, let's say, let's start connecting with people, maybe like amazing Italian feast where you're just part of it in the middle of Italy is what changes your attitude towards all of that, and it opens you up. I do believe it doesn't have to be like the most intense spiritual fasting for 10 days on a mountain that actually does exactly that, right? It could be the opposite, and actually something quite practical too.
Yeah, exactly. Like going fishing can be someone's healing.
Yes.
Sitting on the water and just relaxing. It doesn't have to look like a spiritual practice necessarily. Like, it's just whatever resonates for that
What
person.
resonates with you, right?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Could be surfing or running or
So I guess you can use your heart to quite a degree as a compass. Of like, oh, this feels right.
That's all you need to do. Let's get out of the head and into the heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which requires what you said in the beginning of actually just listening, right?
Yeah.
Sitting down and listening. And I just finished it. It was a business book of Michael Hill, the jeweler, and he was talking about, look, if you set an intent for whatever it is, if you want to move something, change something, don't treat it as something you just do in a cafe over a latte. Like, you actually give it a bit of space and really focus on that, to really hear what it is that you want to do, to be really clear that this is a conscious decision, rather than I went to a seminar, everyone set a goal. In the moment I set this goal and now I'm running with it, because I believe we sometimes forget set the intent. If you don't feel good about your relationships, read books about relationships, read books about men or women, of whatever it might be, to understand it, and then do maybe also the emotional work. Do partner dance, do alone dance. There's so many things. I think you just have to be honest. Like, well, you have to then go in that space. If you're aware that there is some issue, try that. Did that work for time maybe, and then you move on and so on, right?
Exactly. Like, become like a child again. Be curious, be open. You're looking for those things that light you up. Yeah.
Yes. So a session needs to feel good, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might not be obvious to everyone, right?
I mean, a session has to feel good, but there can be moments of uncomfortability
Sure.
if something is arising and I'm holding space for the client and then moving through it.
Mm.
Yeah.
What does the effect of sound look like when a person receives it?
They look very, very relaxed. And I've often heard some clients report they actually leave their body. Some people have told me that it was a spiritual experience for them, and they could see themselves lying down, and they actually got to leave their body, and sometimes they even go somewhere. So, or they might see colors. It doesn't always have to be a trauma experience. Most of the time it's not.
It's really good.
Yeah
I've left my body once. It was an unusual experience, but I guess if you would practice, it probably becomes quite normal. I have kids.
Oh, you left your body?
Yeah, I was really into a particular breathing technology or breathing type that I did an hour in the morning, an hour at night, 108 breath. Normally it would take about an hour to do that. It's holding breath in between and so on. And I did this for a long time, and probably for almost a year. And then was also doing sun gazing in the morning and at night. It was probably up to 35 to 40 minutes in the morning of watching the sun going up. You do 10 seconds every day more.
Yeah.
And the eyes can do that. At least my could. I actually had really good eyesight.
Yeah.
But at one stage I missed a breathing I missed breathing, and so I did it in bed. And so I was sort of half asleep, half not, and then realized that I was sort of floating upwards towards the ceiling. And it felt really like the whole body were moving up. But then I realized, no, this is just part of me. This is odd because all my senses seem to be here. I'm almost hitting my head now on the ceiling.
Wow.
And then my rational mind really came and said, like, okay, so you are up here, the body's down there. How does the body know to breathe? And it took an instant, and I was back in the body. So it was a really short experience, but I think I definitely believe it, even though it's really hard to prove in a scientific way.
Well, you hear, or those life after death experiences, people who die and then come back. Yeah, they have that exact experience of coming out of the body, seeing themselves down in the physical, but then moving into the next plane.
Yes.
And then coming back from that plane.
Yeah. And actually,
the experiences they have with that sound absolutely beautiful.
Yes. Which is nice because it does take, I guess, the terrifying idea of death sort of, and puts it in perspective of like, well, death of the body maybe only?
It's only death of the body, and there is no fear, because it's a very special place that we're going. It's going to be beautiful.
You've looked into that?
Well, as an energy healer, I actually worked with a client. His friend rang me, said, my friend's dying of cancer. Could you please do an energy healing, a distant one for him? I said, sure, of course. But before I could do it, he died. So then his friend said, please, could you just do it anyway?
Yeah.
And so I did the energy healing for him, and he was actually passing over. He was in that actual place, and he had to drop his whole identity to do it.
Yeah.
So we get this life here on Earth where we have a name, we have a birth date, we have an identity, and we get really fixated on it while we're here. But the truth is, once we die, we have to let it all go, and we return into what we call the absolute, this most beautiful returning to who we really are. And I witnessed this man going through that process, and he was incredible. He just dropped his identity very easily and then transcended into that realm. And I said to my friend, I was like, wow, he was amazing. He just dropped his whole identity. And he was like, yeah, he was like that in life.
Yeah.
So some of us are aware and not afraid to die. And some are, believing that this is it. This is all we have. So it depends where you're at. But
Yeah. I do know about cases where people, I don't think they were as such afraid to die, but they felt there was unsolved business.
Oh,
Yeah. I
yeah.
remember, actually my dad, he's a grief counselor, so he knows about people dying, but he also counsels in general. And I remember, and he wouldn't mind me talking about that. He was in a family setting, and someone just couldn't die, but they were really suffering and so on. And at one stage, I think it was one of his children said, "Come on, mom, do talk about this thing. I believe it's good that we should talk about this." And it turned out that the mom was considering suiciding with her kids because it was hardship, really bad hardship. The person, I think, was a dad dying, sort of had always known that something was not quite right, and maybe felt betrayed of them wanting to leave or her wanting to leave, and all the rest of it. And it was just spoken about for a couple of minutes and forgiven. And then that person, could die. So I guess maybe they felt also the responsibility of like, let's clear this. I want this to be cleared for these or for me, who knows? And then suddenly people can die. And yeah, that's certainly something that I've heard over and over again. Sometimes there's just one or two things that need to happen where they feel like I can let go now.
100%. Yeah, that's so true. The unfinished business sort of thing's not good, is it? If you're about to pass over, you really want to clear that.
So does that mean then that you think we come with a particular task or not necessarily? Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Right. You're really clear on that.
Yes. I believe that when we incarnate into this form, we have an absolute life purpose on this planet, and that why people are depressed on this planet is because they're not living their life purpose. And so they may be stuck in a job that they don't love, and they know deep down that I didn't come here for this. There was more. There's more to me. And I believe that is the most important thing that we need to all be doing, is finding out why we came here. What is our special gift, and what do we want to offer the world? And it doesn't have to look like everyone else.
So it can be considered big or small by the outside world. It doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't even
for the
matter.
individual, it might be,
It could be crochet.
But, oh.
Like it could just be something that brings you joy.
Yes.
It doesn't mean, like I know that I came here to sing.
How do you know?
Well, I did a plant medicine journey once.
Yes.
And I was on this big healing journey that I've spoken about.
Right.
And the soul remembers in these journeys.
Yeah.
And it's quite awakening. And I just received it. I came here to sing.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a bigger picture that you have experienced or that you think exists for existence? Really big question, but I love that question. I've always pondered on that ever since I can think, I guess.
Oh, definitely. Of course there is.
All right.
A bigger picture?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're all evolving. And I feel we've been biologically attached to our evolution for too long. It's been dominating us. And I feel like we're slowly evolving beyond just our impulses, hormones, things like that. We're raising our consciousness slowly, wakening up, and raising that vibration as a collective to help the universe. We are so connected to the universe. It's a universal evolution, not just the Earth plane.
Right. So does that mean actually, we're talking about dying and leaving sort of like all the skin behind and on all the personality, that energy that then leaves who we are without the earthly story has evolved during that lifetime too?
Yes.
Oh, so it's not perfect when it comes in the same sense, or maybe perfect, but has broadened its perspective or something.
Exactly. I mean, That's why we come here, to have all these experiences.
Holy cow.
We're learning. It's like Earth's like a classroom.
For the purpose of developing overall as a universe.
Yeah.
Because we are the universe, would you say?
Yes.
Yes.
We are.
Yeah. Because everything is really consciousness, right?
Yeah. We are all one.
The crazy thing about this to me is that I remember living in my van many years ago, and I was really grateful to have this van. And in that particular night, before I fell asleep, I was really grateful about that. I was like, this is mine. Like, I actually own something, which was nice. It's a shelter. I really love this van. And love my bed. I love everything. In fact, I even love the cupboard, and I even love the walls. And at one stage, I didn't put myself as superior to the walls, to the wood, and all the rest of it. And it became just all a soup of vibrating something.
Amazing.
It was amazing.
It actually sounds like you're in a samadhi state.
Oh, so this is a known state.
This is a yogic state that we are attaining self-realization. Yes.
Wow.
Where that is exactly what happens in that samadhi state. Everything you can feel is just this permeating this consciousness of oneness, that's it's all connected.
Yes.
So yeah, you're not separate from that wall. Or,
yeah, right.
It's pretty profound.
I guess that's when you say oneness, one definition in my mind would be like, yeah, all people are one, or maybe also the animals, but the reality is any atom has consciousness in it. And I haven't caught up with the latest sort of scientific sort of like look at that, but there's certainly a lot that basically says it's all the same. Which maybe humans or beings have a more concentrated bit of that, but that doesn't make anything else less. It just has this different type of consciousness, or definite density of consciousness.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so great. I'm so glad I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's very humbling.
Yeah. Well, it's also nice to sort of get a bit of an inkling of what the rules might be, or the point, because I guess if you know what the purpose of all is, and if it is developing yourself, the question I sometimes ask myself is like, so is it good to have a good life, or is it actually really good to have a lot of hardship? Because is there more learning in a hardship than a good life, or does it actually not matter? Or is it really just your choice and you can choose it? Like, is there good and bad really, or is it all learning?
Exactly. Such a great point. Well, I believe I chose before I incarnated.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to grow. I wanted to learn. I wanted to evolve my soul pretty dramatically in this life by the looks. So yeah, I chose my parents and I chose those situations. And I also believe in karma, and that I had to rebalance some of my karma from other past lives and behaviors that I did. So yeah.
What would you say a simple definition of karma would be?
So in the Buddhist philosophy, they say a negative action creates a negative experience. And so if I've caused harm and made negative action towards others in different lives, then to reverse that karma, I've got to receive from them that negative action to sort of balance it out.
So that's good and bad in a sense.
So with the scenario of my father being an alcoholic, I did a healing around that with a holokinetic. It's an Aboriginal form of healing.
Yes.
And it was revealed that I did way worse to my father in a past life. I was this drug addict, alcoholic parent to my father. And so it created an awareness like, oh my gosh, wow. So it's rebalancing the karma that I then received what I received in this life.
Wow. That's a good perspective.
Isn't that a different perspective?
It's also, yeah. I think, this is the English word, you cut some slack towards the person that creates trauma for you.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where that compassion comes in, the Buddhist teaching that all beings are doing their best, and then they may be suffering, and that, no one really wants to create suffering.
Yeah. I always struggle with sort of looking at great lives, and often they were initiated by suffering or struggle. And it's annoying looking at my kids. I'm like, if you want to create grit, or if you want to be ambitious or whatever, or don't take things for granted, do I have to take things away for you so that you understand what it's like? And I have a lot of conversation around that at the moment with other parents and also people who are older, of saying, how can you create a resilient and a grateful child without dropping them in a war zone and saying, like, this is what it could be like. Okay, so come back and be grateful for what you've got. And our middle way now is sort of like attending a soup kitchen, like going into a rest home. It's like, Be grateful for your body because it will not always be like that. Be grateful for the abundance you have in your life because there are others that show you what it would be like otherwise. We hope that's enough because I went through school and school really didn't work for me. It was a really dark time of my life, and it only sort of finished sort of mid-20s. I didn't derail completely, but there were certainly points where I could have derailed because of that. But it really helps me to be really happy with my life now. Yeah, it's a conundrum a little bit to me, like how when you raise children.
Well, in my experience of clients, I would say if you're raising children in a happy, safe, loving environment, you're doing a wonderful job.
Okay.
And congratulations. They will learn those things through your modeling of gratitude.
Right.
But to give a child a trauma-free upbringing is the most wonderful gift.
Okay.
They will become such an incredible part of society.
Yeah.
And I hear it because some of my clients, they've had childhood traumas.
Yeah.
Their partners have had these amazing upbringings and they're solid as a rock.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Thank you. That's a great perspective. So you love singing?
Absolutely.
You mentioned that before we got online. So particular mantras?
Yeah. I'm a composer and a songwriter and a music producer.
Oh, wow. Mantras that to me, is there a particular genre within mantras? There is.
Oh, mantra is a Sanskrit language that is preserved for prayer. And when we sing these mantras, we are accessing a lineage that has been singing these mantras for decades and thousands of years of the yogis and the sages. And so we are connecting to the soul. And it can really provide peace. And it tames the mind. Because when you're focused on a mantra, the mind just quiets and a state of bliss comes in.
So is it similar to when you were talking about the different notes of crystal balls healing?
Yeah.
So mantras have different sort of elements or building blocks that have all different effects on the mind and body?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, so for example, Loka, Samasta, Sukhino, Bhavantu is a prayer that all beings be free from suffering. All beings have love in their hearts. So I've written a song with that as the chorus. And just hoping to support more people on the planet with feelings of bliss and freedom and sound healing.
So when you produce or when you compose a song, you're really aware of the effect of each element?
Oh yeah, I'm aware of the meaning behind the mantra, so that what I'm transmitting to the listener, the chords, a lot of the chord structures that I use, have been really well thought out in terms of, we call it circle of fifths. Yeah, it's like a harmonious sound that we create with the chord structure so that everything really lands well in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the instruments, I'm going to be using a bansuri flute player. This is a Indian sort of roots. And my instrument is a harmonium that comes from India, and it's a tool. It's like a beautiful vibration that runs up your arm into your heart when you play it. And then, of course, I've got these amazing other musicians like percussion and bass, and it's going to be very exciting. We're just about to record.
Oh, very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So would mantras be part of what you sing when you go to a kirtan singing, which I'm really familiar with?
Yeah.
Same tradition or just elements used from the mantra tradition?
Yeah, so I have adored that tradition, the kirtan.
Yes.
And I'm also my own artist, so I wanted to express some of my own experience of life and some of my own heartbreak and suffering.
Yes.
And hopefully through that, share with an audience who could connect and then find some peace in the mantra that will be in the chorus sections. So it's a combination of English and mantra that I've decided to go with.
Yes. If we assume that every human has their stuff, and that most likely there will be a mantra vibration. Doesn't actually matter which modality, but let's say it was mantra, that probably sort of connects with that. If you would sit a person in front of speakers or ideally, even a live orchestra, and you sing through the different mantras, they could scan their body of like, there's definitely an effect here. This brought tears to my eyes. This brought joy. Could they then just say, I take that element, and that element, and I just immerse myself every Sunday where I have time for 3 hours and just play that? It comes to mind because it just comes to mind that I used to do these types of things more with pop music. And I think teenagers are great with it, right?
That's what music does.
Right.
It's such a healing force.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all genres.
Mm-hmm.
Rock, country.
Yeah.
Music's the bomb.
Okay. So the mantra is a really traditional and really purposeful one. Right?
So yeah, I've been on a path called Bhakti Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a yogini. And so that's the path of devotion. So that's why I love singing mantras. But I can still write rock songs and pop songs too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the effects might be not. Well, it depends on the person.
But yeah, I'm a healer.
Yeah.
So my purpose is to sing, but it's also to bring healing.
Yeah.
So that's just perfect for me to combine them.
Fascinating.
And it just resonates and lights me up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So music can also be playing an instrument, I guess. It could be a great way to find that resonance in your own body of like, hey, when I play a sharp C minor, whatever, that really is the thing. And so you play around that, and it might actually evoke or bring up trauma or heal certain things or give you more stability or something, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're musical instruments. They've discovered that in our energy system, that each chakra holds a note. So
right.
that, like I said earlier, the base of the spine is the C note.
Mm-hmm.
You move up the spine into what we call the sacral, and that's the D note.
D.
Move up into the belly button area, that's the E. The heart is the F note. Yeah, so it's
that's fascinating.
We do get impacted by music, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, most pop songs are written in C, aren't they?
Yeah, the CFG is a pretty good chord progression, pretty good one.
Yep. Yeah.
Hit songs.
That's where my improvisation
I love pop.
skill set.
I'm not gonna lie.
But it's interesting. So I mean, if we think about it sort of like society-wide, like, so if pop is sort of dominant for a while or has been dominant, that means that the people that listen to pop, they're more stimulated in that way. Because like you can spin, our consciousness certainly understands that a particular chakra relates to certain emotions, themes, behaviors, right? So if you play only C, that's quite a low, nothing wrong with low, you need it, but like that's a root chakra sort of thing.
Yeah.
But quite primal?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, in a chord progression, you'll never just play a C.
True.
You're going to play an F, which would be heart,
G.
Yeah, usually you've got a minimum of 3 chords.
How would you classify classical music? What's the highest?
Oh, the B, the
so it's B, right?
Crown chakra.
So how do you get to those notes? Is that more like going into traditions like mantras that would stimulate that, or would you say no? Like you can play the radio and you can still find stimulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just a key. You could write in the key of B or something.
That is fascinating. There's always an explanation, isn't there? Talking to you, which is great. That's wonderful. And there's so many options, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're consciously choosing to write sound healing music, you would think about it differently than, say, someone who's writing pop music. They wouldn't bring that kind of background knowledge into it.
Is it possible that you have a trauma and from an unconditional mind still heal yourself? Or do you actually need to be conscious of the trauma, of the history, to be free of it?
Yeah, good question. You don't need to know all the details. Yeah, I think sometimes we can get fixated on needing to know what it was, where it was, what happened. And sometimes it can just be cleared out energetically and you don't need all the details. So yeah, the body can just release it.
We talked about that earlier. So I have seen people being, or looks like they're stuck, and it's like the area we live in. I think our population is not really balanced. There are more women than men here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would say by far?
Definitely.
Okay.
There's a lot of us single women here.
Yeah, right. And I guess it brings maybe a little bit of a mindset. It might also bring in certain men, or look, I'm not part of this community strongly simply because I'm really inward focused in the phase of life I am. But you do talk to people, and I guess I feel that, when it comes to men and women, there are traumas on both sides. The women certainly say there are a lot of bad men and a lot of aggressive men. And I recently sort of experienced that a little bit by showing aggression and people actually saying like, that's not right. You trigger fear in others. And like, okay. But, if I'm in a space where we're meant to be our authentic us, does that mean that I have to tone myself down, or that resilience and acceptance on the other side has to be created? And then on the other side, so that's talking about expressing a male thing.
Yeah.
And then, I think from the female side, I guess it's similar. It's like, can females be really strong? Are they meant to be strong? Is that what really creates resilience? Strong meaning like headstrong and like the CEO type, if I go all in, like the really strong one. And that's of course all okay, but like, why don't these often match? And why are these stories keep them apart? Men feeling suppressed by women because they can't be themselves. Women feel suppressed because the men are aggressive and show certain things, or the women can't be that. And I guess I don't look for specific answers as such, but like, where's the discord that we can't have a communication here and say like, these two still match, even though they have opposing views, but they actually can embrace it at that moment. This is alchemy, which I believe my wife and I do fairly well at the moment. We always have to work on it. But it annoys me from a point of view is like, it holds you back from finding a partner, even though both sides really want a really good partner. And it just feels like, gee, there must be something that we can do.
I agree. Yeah, this is a really big question. And I think, with the historical stuff between men and women, it's very multi-layered. So, because you're absolutely right. I mean, women have an opinion on men and men have an opinion on women. And based on the history through the planet, the ages, there's all this unresolved energy between us as sexes. Like, I think we have to acknowledge that if we're going to come together and what it is that we're energetically bringing to each other's, and when we're hitting up against each other and we're like feeling that real negative energy between them. And I think, the only real way to move through it is through nonviolent communication.
Yeah, because I think like the overall, what I found with my wife really works is like, if we actually acknowledge, we try to find a way to be together, right? So we try to resolve this. So it's not about right and wrong, because who knows, the context changes right or wrong quite quickly if you change context. And so when we hear about sort of couples that where the man always goes to play golf Saturday morning from 5 to 11, she's alone with the kids, that sounds like a really ignorant dad, until you also take into account that the woman never actually states her needs. And that's a simple example. And it goes both ways. Like, it has nothing to do with blame at all. I'm just more saying like, well, what's really the way that we have to look at these issues so that women feel good about the relationship they have and the man? Like, is it a tool that we miss? And the same with the man. It's like, oh, women are demanding, whatever men say. I'm sure they say things and then they don't have a partner either, or they don't look after themselves and their beautiful heart, but not really messy otherwise. And I'm just like, man, these things sometimes become obvious. I don't have all the answers, but I have a few that I overcame through a good relationship. And when we talk about this area in particular, and I'm sure that there are pockets around the world that are a bit like that, is like the consciousness is high, but are we missing a little bit of something that actually would make it way more beautiful?
Exactly. It's that simple thing that you said. Everyone needs to express their needs and their feelings in their communication. Otherwise, how do we know what the other person's, if they're feeling resentment? So it'd be like, hey, honey, I'm feeling resentment because my need for, some space from the kids isn't being met when you go off and play golf. Would it be possible? Would you consider like meeting me somewhere on this? And then at least it's just opening the conversation. And I would suggest training in nonviolent communication is important for all relationships.
Yes. It's a framework to state something without judgment, right? Like, would you describe it like it's a bit more?
Because we're owning our own feelings. We're not projecting.
Yes.
And we're not like creating an argument because we're not going, you did this. We're saying, no, I'm feeling this because I need this. are you willing to meet me?
It's nice talking to you because it seems we always see possibilities of a solution of all the different things we talk about, right? And I think if I would listen, it would give me hope. There's always something that you can do to figure it out, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Everything's energy. We can always move through it if we're willing.
So if people want to have that conversation with you one-on-one, you did say sound healing Byron Bay is one way?
Yeah, but also do online work.
Yes. So what would be a more specific way to Google you?
Divine sound healing.
That's the way
Yeah.
people will find you around the world. Do you have an Instagram, something like that?
Yeah, that's divine_sound healing.
Amazing. And your new album will be on that as well?
Yay, my album! I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Ruby, it was so nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. I'm sure I could talk to you for hours because you have a lot of answers and perspectives that I found incredible, and I hope the audience did too. So thank you so much for making the time and being so open, so vulnerable, and I really appreciate all the work you've done, because that is the reason why you can share so many incredible perspectives and avenues that people can explore and think of and do.
Thank you.
Thank
you for inviting me onto your show.
Thanks for being you.
Namaste.
Namaste. I hope today's conversation inspired you. If you found value in it, please share this episode with someone who could benefit from its insights. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow us to stay in the loop and have the best life ever.